Notah Begay, a former professional golfer, now a golf analyst for NBC Sports and the Golf Channel, joins us now. Notah, how's the weather over there?
It is absolutely perfect, Dan. I mean, it's about 70 degrees right now and just not much wind and pretty ideal conditions for golf.
As far as, trying to defend on foreign soil here in the U.S. team, handicap the U.S. team versus the European team.
Well, it's a really strong team on paper. The average world rank is 11th, and which is substantially better than the average rank of the European squad. But when you look at the venue, what viewers are going to see is a really tight, very tactical golf course there where players are going to be hitting their tee shots to a lot of the same places, whether you're a long hitter or a shorter hitter, and then it's just going to come down to who has the nerve and who can hit their iron shots closer and then make a few putts. So I think this year's Ryder Cup you're going to see a lot more holes won with par because, Dan, I was just out there walking the golf course. That rough is brutal. It's similar to what we used to see at the old setup for U.S. Opens. It's just deep, it's thick, it's healthy, and unless you get lucky with a lie, you're not going to be able to make a play for the green.
And as far as the European team, is Europe favored in this?
Actually, Europe's a dog in this.
Oh, they are?
And, it's interesting. Well, I think it's because it's been 25 years since the United States has been able to win the Ryder Cup on foreign soil. The last time was at the Belfry in 1993. So we have very little success here, and no one can really pinpoint why, because typically we come in with much stronger teams as far as worldwide wins, world rank, any sort of metric that you want to evaluate to determine quality of a team. The U.S. is typically better, but they just seem to have chemistry. They get the momentum. They make the big putts, and if you get a 2-point lead in this thing, that's a huge deficit to have to overcome, and they've managed to do it a lot better than we have, at least in continental Europe.
How big is the Tiger Woods story factor over there in Paris?
It's huge. I mean, you should the crowds just to follow him on the practice round. It's he probably gets 60-70% of the fans around his group, and then the rest kind of disperse around the other groups. It's amazing. I mean, the resurgence of Tiger Woods and him winning again after such a battle off the course, injuries, comeback, the whole thing. It's just kind of injected golf with this huge boost of energy, and you can feel it over here. And he's energized his team. And he's kind of bringing that sort of Tiger factor, Tiger intimidation back to the golf course.
You've known him a long time. You were college teammates. And we had Nick Faldo on recently, and he said that Tiger told him at the Masters, that the Champions Dinner a couple of years ago, that he could barely sit down, that he was done. Like this transformation, I don't know if it's the greatest sports comeback in history, but it's certainly on the short list there. How do you explain how this happened and how everybody fell back in love with Tiger Woods?
Well, I mean, I was there. I mean, he had 4 surgeries to sort of deal with this whole back issue, and then I was there after the first surgery, and I went to visit him at his house just to sort of give him some support and encourage him to sort of hang in there emotionally. And he couldn't sit up. Like, he couldn't sit up in a chair. He had to always sort of be at an angle because his back really at that point couldn't sustain any type of pressure. And he asked me to drive him to run some errands, and we went to pick the kids up at school. And it was to be honest, Dan, it was a hard thing for me to see. I mean, I've known this guy since he was 9 years old. We've been best of friends for 30 years, and to see that he was in that condition, and to know that this could quite possibly be the end of one of the greatest athletes in history of sports was a sad thing for me, and it was tough for me to even process, much less him. And then come full circle, and a few more surgeries and a fusion, and then him having to rebuild his entire game around what his physical limitations would allow him to do. I'd put it up there as one of the greatest comebacks in the history of our sport, just because there were so many obstacles to deal with, and he did it. He didn't have any teammates or anything kind of pulling the weight for him. I mean, in golf, you have to go out there and you have to do it and you have to earn it on your own.
We're talking to Notah Begay, part of the Golf Channel and NBC Sports coverage of the Ryder Cup. Tiger was asked about his Mount Rushmore of golf. He had this to say, and then I'll get your reaction, Notah.
My all-time Mount Rushmore of golf. Okay, well, probably Snead, Jones, Nicklaus, me.
What did you make of his answer there?
Well, it tells me that he has a tremendous amount of respect for history in Bobby Jones, and that he acknowledges Sam Snead's all-time PGA Tour win record at 82, which he's may or may not break over the next couple years. So, and that he really feels good about himself.
Does he think he's better than Jack Nicklaus?
Yes, I believe he does. I do too. I mean, a lot of people say it's not fair to compare, but I don't know how there could be a person that at his high point was the best at everything. Jack was never the best at everything. He was really, really good at, let's call it 6 out of the 7 disciplines. We'll never see it. We'll never know. I do think Jack's win, Masters in 86, was one of the greatest feats in sports. But I do think overall that if they were to go head-to-head, and I don't think I've ever said this on air, but but I've thought about it since I've gotten into television and media and whatnot. I think Tiger would beat him, 7 out of 10 times.
Really? Because Jack's not going to be intimidated. That's part of, Tiger's legacy is, he would stare down everybody and they all melted. The guys who stood up to him were the guys who didn't have any reputation, but the guys who were supposed to stand up to him. That's what I think the mind game between Jack and Tiger, if they did pair off against each other, because you couldn't intimidate Jack and Jack's not intimidating Tiger.
Right. So, that would sort of those things would cross each other out. But so much depends. It's different than, a game of basketball where the dimensions of the court are the same, or baseball. Golf, it would depend on the venue. Where would they play? What would be the setup? What would be the green speeds? What would be the width of the fairways? How deep would the rough be? Those would all factor in, but regardless of where they went or how they set it up, I do think Tiger Woods is, slightly superior golfer.
How does the United States win the Ryder Cup?
The United States wins the Ryder Cup by being patient and disciplined. Most of our players, when they get behind or they make a couple bogeys, they'll start playing a lot more aggressively. But there's so much water on these finishing holes, and the rough is so high that if they start pressing and trying to play aggressive and overpower the golf course, it's going to lead to more mistakes. So they really have to rely on staying disciplined, hitting to the appropriate spots in the fairway, and then trying to take advantage of good, solid iron play, and just really not try and get too far behind in any of their matches.
Why was Paris picked?
Well, I just think they try and move it around. They try and move the Ryder Cup around because for a couple reasons. They're supposed to represent the entire continent of Europe, and majority of these have been, played in, England and some of the other more popular venues in Spain, and I just think it was time for France to host this event. Unfortunately, they don't have any players
I was going to ask you. They're not even represented. They should get an automatic berth here, Notah, like the American World Cup.
I agree. They had a couple players that could have been close to qualifying. Victor Dubuisson qualified for the Ryder Cup at Glen Eagles in Scotland 4 years ago, and I thought that he might have a chance of making it here, and he would have been a great addition to the team. But they just haven't had anyone of that caliber. I think the highest-ranked player for the French representing the country of France is Alexander Levy, and he didn't play well enough to get consideration.
I would think DeChambeau sounds French, and then they should acquire Bryson DeChambeau at least for the weekend. I think that's only fair.
Yeah, he could have been the player to be named later. I don't know. I mean, I'm with it. I mean, he's got a French last name.
Notah, have fun over there, and it'll be a great watch. We appreciate your time as always.
All right, Dan. Thanks for the call.
That's Notah Begay, Golf Channel, NBC Sports golf analyst.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.